One of the most common fungal infections on a number of tree species is mildew. This one, a European hornbeam, every year gets infected by mildew. How can you reduce the infection rate? And once you have it, what do you do to get rid of it? Hey, welcome, this is Jelle growing bonsai, and today I am finishing a video which I started last year. Right now is exactly the moment to publish it, because if you are, like me, in the early phases of summer, you might start noticing discoloration on your leaves of oak, of European hawthorns, and of some of the prunus species. And you know, I have a fungal infection. That fungal infection is mildew. Now, in order to discuss this, we have to look back a little bit. Let's go back all the way to winter and see how I prepared this tree to reduce mildew infections. And in fact, you'll find out later in the video, I was not completely successful, and I'm going to show you what I'm now planning on doing to reduce the infection for the rest of the summer. Temperatures are rising, buds are swelling, and it's time to think about protecting your bonsai against mildew for the rest of the season. As you can see the buds starting to turn green, and you see the green lines on the buds, this is the moment to start looking at spraying your trees. Last spring I thought my trees are quite happy and healthy and I'll just put them outside. Then August came. Late August, it was humid, it was warm, and all of a sudden I found my trees to be looking miserable. We've had lots of weeks with lots of wet weather, and as a result I now have mildew here on the hornbeams. And that's what discolors the leaves, and it also reduces the growth because the leaves are basically damaged. I still have a month or two of growing season left. It's midsummer. Let's take off all these leaves and reducing the length, and then I'll spray these plants with the fungicide to see how they recover, hopefully without any disease. Just removing every leaf at the stem, leaving the buds alone, of course. After this work, clean your scissors, because you never know how many of these spores will stay alive between now and your next pruning. You don't want to cross-infect plants, even though your garden is probably full of spores already after an infection like this. Just a tad of sulfur. For horticultural use. Add water and shake. Now it is important that the buds get protected before the fungus can infect them, so that when the new leaves grow out, hopefully we don't have another infection straight away. I am a little bit careful with soaking the soil, because I don't know how good this is for beneficial fungi in the soil. Quite a bad infection of mildew now. Let's remove all the leaves and spray it with copper sulfate, and hopefully this young growth here at the tip will not be infected and will grow healthily for the rest of the season. Early October, and the question of course is, did it work? Did this activity, did the defoliation help me in getting rid of the mildew? Well, for the oak it did resprout, but it is already covered in mildew again. I really need to start spraying these more frequently against mildew. That being said, the hornbeam, that's completely free of mildew. It's nice and healthy foliage. The leaves are quite small, which was to be expected because it was an unexpected reflushing for the tree. And this has actually recovered really, really well. No adverse effects. In fact, I could start wiring it because it is now October and place a few of these extension growths from this year so that I get a fuller canopy, but this is done well. However, this is a good example of why you have to be always very, very careful when you defoliate. Here you can see that yes, there are parts that have regrown, but there's also some branches and complete sections that have not regrown. This reflects how this tree was not very healthy or strong beforehand. And now you can see these are the consequences. It has not grown. This could mean in early spring that I'm going to face some trouble here in this part, that it isn't growing back all that strongly and that some of the branches will die off. I'm not too concerned. Overall, this tree is healthy and strong. So overall, this tree is healthy and strong, so I'm not too concerned about it. But still, I would have loved for this to resprout. That is the risk of a late season defoliation when a tree is not in optimal health. So this is also a warning: if you are thinking about defoliating your tree, know that your tree is healthy, know that it is strong, and know why you are defoliating. It is not something to be done with a light-minded, let's just defoliate. You really run the risk of the tree not resprouting if it is not strong enough. Now I have big fat buds on all these branches, so I think I'll still be okay. But then again, it is early October. We could get frost in the next 2 or 3 weeks. That might mean that a bud like this one, which is actually slightly opening up, can sustain frost damage. Late season defoliation, know why you do it and otherwise don't. Mildew infections often already take place in the very, very early stages. So as the buds are swelling and are opening up, the spores will germinate, they'll start growing into the bud and infect the leaves. You might not see it in early season, but often the spores are already on your tree as it starts to grow. And that's why the start of the season is a good moment to start spraying. What do you use in your spray can if you don't want to rely on proper horticulture alone? I have copper sulfate. I use this very, very rarely and only in heavy fungal infections because it is just not so great for the environment. Then I've got sulfur. This is just the regular sulfur that you get from, I don't know, your garden center, and is used, for instance, on roses against mildew. These two are two go-to products that you can use, and on top of that you probably have yin liquid at home, lime sulfur. You can use lime sulfur as well directly on your trees to protect them from fungal infections. Particularly when they're in the bare stage, it is really good to use. It protects against insects, but also against fungi. All pruned back, ready to go back in the garden for the rest of winter. But before I do that, as said, I'm going to mix up some lime sulfur, yin middle, yin liquid, dilution about 1 to 20, 1 to 30. So 1 part of yin liquid, lime sulfur, into 20 to 30 parts of water. This you make according to the instructions of the package. Your copper, I just use a knife tip in a sprayer like this. And then spray the whole tree, dripping wet. So it's time to get the spraying can to start spraying my trees. After spraying them, I'll put them inside for a day or two. Let it dry for a couple of hours, maybe a couple of days, so that the salts can really set on the tree. That's it. Now, if you look more closely at this European hawthorn, you can see a few things. One of them is there is only very, very few leaves. That is because 3-4 weeks ago I partially defoliated this tree. Second, you can see little traces of white on the leaves. That is not mildew in this case. In this case, it is a sulfur-based fungicide that I sprayed on the leaves 2 weeks ago to reduce the infection. However, if you look more closely, you see also a brown shimmer in the leaves. They are not healthy. The mildew infection has continued on. Lastly, what you can tell, little red points on the branches. The new buds, they are swelling, they are about to pop. So what I'm going to do now that there is a mildew infection, I am going to reduce the infection rate of the new foliage by complete defoliation of this tree. We're probably only 2-3 weeks away from these buds completely opening up. So I'm going to defoliate. Then later today I will spray the tree with the fungicide. Hopefully that will be enough to stop these new buds from getting infected. Now I have been pulling off the leaves with my hands, and that's actually wrong because what I've done, I've pulled off a bud. So I'm going to get myself some scissors. I'm going to clip them at the petiole. Of course, by hand you can also do it. You have to use 2 hands and you just slip them off and you hold the bud with the other hand. And as you know, in bonsai, there's a tool for everything. For defoliation, I have these little scissors. They are actually sold as a harvester tool to clip beans of beanstalks. In the bonsai trade you also see these tiny little scissors, but then made out of steel, coming from Japan, specifically for defoliation. The nice thing is, it is spring loaded, so I don't have to open and close my hands. I just have to close down whenever I want to cut something. And I cut right through the petiole. So I'm leaving the little stems, I'm removing the leaf though. This way you don't damage the buds. I'm sometimes a little bit lazy and I don't want to use a scissor, and I just pull them off by hand.